First Church of the Holy Jackass.
The First Church of the Holy Jackass is not an actual religious institution that is legally recognized or subsidized with any taxpayer money. It is instead a one-person Setian religious art project and social initiative that is coordinated entirely by me, G.B. Marion, a priest of Set in the LV 426 tradition of Setianism. And I am here to offer a very different concept of religion than most people in the United States of America are familiar with. Dua Set, so mote it be. You might say I believe God and nature are really one and the same thing, and that both are best understood as a collective they in the plural sense, rather than just a singular he, she, or they. I believe these multiple higher powers coexist across various alternate realities, with each one playing a vital role in keeping all of creation alive. I also believe this is an eternal, ongoing struggle that requires the gods to cooperate and reign in balance with each other as allies. Deities can even have multiple religions that follow them, and in many different ways, like the one to whom Jews, Christians, and Muslims are devoted. This is even true of polytheist gods like Set, whose followings among the pre-dynastic Naqada civilization, the Middle and New Kingdom pharaohs, the Hellenized Egyptian syncretists, and contemporary Western believers, including Cometics, Hermetics, Gnostics, Thelemites, and Satanists, each represent a different variety of Setian religious experience. Now, in popular culture, Set is usually cast as the Egyptian god of evil, a kind of proto-Satan. But popular culture's version of Set is not the Set who is actually worshipped in ancient Egypt. The real Set is a warrior and a trickster who does things that none of the other gods want to do, but which have to be done anyway. His job is to make sure there's always some kind of forward movement happening throughout every level of existence. Sometimes this means making trouble for the other gods, as when Set challenges Osiris or Horus. And sometimes it means saving them from horrific chaos monsters, as when Set saves Ra from the Isfet serpent each night. The Isfet serpent is the true adversary in Egyptian religion. The hieroglyphic for its name is a snake, its body looped in multiple coils, its flesh pierced with butcher knives. This thing is much more like Satan than Set is, though it's actually far worse. Satan's just an angel at the end of the day. Jesus or Allah is destined to kick his hiney at the end of time, and he can only do whatever his maker allows him to do. The Isfet serpent is not a being created or controlled by any god, but something more like a black hole, a vapid non-entity that just wants to eat everything. And since it isn't a created being to begin with, it can never be completely defeated or destroyed. It can be repelled or execrated in various ways, but it always comes back. But despite its ultimate immortality, the Isfet serpent is not a god, but more of an ungod. It was never worshipped in Egyptian religion, but was only ever worshipped against. Set prevents it from ending the world each night, and that's what I love most about him. The serpent tries to murder creation by swallowing Ra, the sun god. We might be tempted to ridicule the Egyptians for thinking a giant snake was floating around out there in outer space trying to eat our sun, but this assumes the story is meant to be taken literally. It's also a disturbing metaphor about sleep, in which Ra, quote-unquote, dies each night and travels through Duat, the other side, to be reborn at dawn. As we sail through the unconscious terrain of sleep, we can encounter all kinds of frightening phenomena in the form of nightmares. The Isfet serpent is what nightmares are made of, and Set is the stuff nightmares are afraid of. So this theme of Set saving Ra from the serpent every night is more like the oldest known version of If I Should Die Before I Wake, representing the hope that we will all wake up again after going to sleep, even when we enter the sleep of death. Do gods really exist beyond their corresponding phenomena, iconographies, mythologies, rituals, and/or believers? I personally believe they do myself, but I realize this is a matter of subjective faith, not of objective certainty, and I don't fault anyone for thinking differently. I doubt that Set, or even most gods in general, really fault anyone for this either. I think the quote-unquote answer to this question is actually quite irrelevant, for even if the gods aren't sentient beings like people or animals, they're still effective enough to make all kinds of differences to people, including many who never become committed believers. So I choose to treat the gods as real beings, regardless of whatever the unknowable objective truth of this matter might happen to be. I am much more confident in my certainty that none of the various monotheist gods is really the one true God that everyone must follow for fear of eternal damnation after death. This is because there is literally no more reason to believe or disbelieve in said deities than there is to believe or disbelieve in all the various polytheist gods. Jehovah is neither more nor less plausibly real than Zeus or Ganesha, and since different gods are effective for different people, there is no reason to claim any particular deity as being some one-size-fits-all kind of deal. While I do accept monotheist gods as being just as authentic as my own, I am not always sure whether the claims to their exclusivity originate from their followers or from the deities themselves. I find these claims obnoxious either way, and I am very seldom moved by religious services that center on these particular divinities. So, as much as it annoys certain monotheists for whatever reasons that aren't really any of their business in the first place, I have zero interest in practicing such religions. I have even less interest in placating them for some kind of ecumenical acceptance. I will not change or adapt the way I believe, or even how I discuss my faith, just to make monotheists feel more comfortable. After all, I have only to mention my enthusiasm for a deity who isn't Jesus for many of the Christians I have known to go totally apeshit on me. Meanwhile, they expect me to bow my head and sing hymns to their God with them at their weddings and funerals, and they feel put out when I stand and watch in a respectful silence. This has been the case with progressive Christians as much as it has been with their conservative counterparts. Even the most liberal Christians want to describe me as simply worshiping God in my own way, which makes me feel ignored rather than acknowledged. Many polytheists have experienced this kind of backhanded acceptance, where other religions will insist we are really pantheists or quasi-monotheists or something, literally anything, but polytheists. And when we clarify that no, we do in fact believe in multiple gods, not just quote-unquote one god under many forms, the responses to this are usually dismissive, if not outright hostile. The fact is that people are just spiritually wired in different ways. Some people's spirits glow at a Catholic Mass or an evangelical tent revival, and nothing else will do it for them. Some people find other ways to make their spirits glow without ever engaging any gods at all. And some people, like myself, are spiritually inspired by gods who have nothing to do with any biblical theology. I am just as devoted to Set as Christians are to Jesus, and that's just all there is to it. All attempts to dissuade me from following my true spiritual nature end in total failure. If I am to have any religion or spirituality in my life at all, it must involve Set first and foremost to even register for me personally. And it frankly doesn't matter how much this might bother monotheists. I'm not here for them or their God. I'm here for me and for Set and the additional deities I revere. Having said all that, I don't claim to know how all these various gods relate to each other exactly. Even the most articulate cosmogonies are only applicable to specific pantheons, and these often have multiple cosmogonies to begin with. There is no objective certainty as to how Set and Jesus, for example, might both rank in the same theological food chain, so to speak. Christians will happily insist they know the answer to this question, but there is little they can do to convince Setians that we should agree with them. We tend not to think of theology as a competition anyway. It is less about thinking you have a direct phone line to the best possible God in the multiverse, and more about finding the right higher power or powers for you personally, if any. We are, of course, entitled to think Set is the biggest and the baddest of all possible gods, but since he is a polytheist deity, this is more like calling someone you love the best, just because you love them, not because you literally think no one else on earth deserves to be praised. Next week, I will go into some greater detail about some of the other deities I revere in addition to Set, and how each of these higher powers has contributed to the development of this ministry.
O dazzling one, great of strength, Lord of the red lands, the rest of the world may curse your names, but I give you praise, for I know that nothing, not even the Creator, can exist without you, save for the accursed serpent. Though you are reviled, you carry the weight of all worlds upon your shoulders, and you have never once failed to do your duty. Truly, there is no other God who deserves as much praise or sympathy as you, for your blessings are never contingent upon your acceptance by anyone. Know then, great Set, that when I praise you, I do so simply because I love you, not from fear of punishment or desire for reward. When I am a husband to the widow, when I am a father to the orphan, I dedicate my service to you, that none may ever say, nothing good ever came from him. Let it be known that you are my greatest inspiration to be noble and true, and so shall I swear to all people until you beckon me to your desert beyond the Great Bear. My prince, reach down with your mighty red hand and straighten my spine, that I may face the serpent and withstand its evil gaze. Sharpen my eyes, that I may discern the serpent when moral clarity is absent. Open my mouth, that I may utter great spells to drive the serpent back into darkness. I will stand by you in this world and the next. I will offer you praises until the end of my days and beyond. I love you and worship you from the bottom of my heart, and I hope and I pray that I make you proud somehow. All honor and praise upon you, most holy Lord Sutak. So mote it be.